Hello, everybody, and welcome to Talk About, your usually weekly news show where I, your host Alex Brown, gather the top gaming headlines from the past week and break them down with you. This week's headlines are irrelevant because, let's just face it, it's all Starfield news. It's just people talking about Starfield. The review embargo at the time of recording is 2 hours away, so there's going to be no real big news to talk about because everyone's focused on Starfield, so there are hardly any new announcements coming out. I believe there's a Super Mario Wonder Direct maybe today. That's how irrelevant this news is, and PlayStation Plus prices are going up. Yeah, PlayStation Plus prices are going up quite a bit. Doesn't really affect me. I don't really play my PlayStation that much, so doesn't affect me. But I'm sure it affects a lot of people. But that's not what we're here to talk about. Okay, we're here to talk about Armored Core 6: Fires of Rubicon, which is like the coolest name you could possibly give a video game. I mean, all of it. Armored Core alone is cool, and then you're gonna add in Fires of Rubicon. Come on, great title. 10 out of 10 title. But what do I think about it overall? Well, I'm just going to let you know. This is completely on 100% off the cuff because, as we all know, Starfield is tomorrow as of this recording. Early access, of course. So I'm essentially, what essentially is happening here is I'm putting out this episode of Talk About early so that I cannot have to record an episode of Talk About when what I really want to do is play Starfield. You see what I'm saying? I hope you see what I'm saying. But I did not want to miss the cycle to talk about Armored Core because, unfortunately for Armored Core, I don't know why Bandai Namco kept it like this. It came out 1 week before Starfield dropped, so a lot of the conversation for Armored Core is about to just be swept under a rug because it's going to, whether Starfield is a hit or not. And of course, by the time you are listening or watching this, you will know for certain what the consensus on Starfield is, whether it's great or another disappointment. You'll know. But either way, it's going to cover all of the headlines for probably the next week. So, unfortunately, Armored Core is going to not get the flowers it deserves. So I just wanted to make sure I got to cover it for at least a little bit. And pretty much it came out last Friday as of recording, and I've pretty much played it nonstop these past 2 days I've been off. And I am my progress so far, of course. First and foremost, though, big fan of From Software. Let's set the groundwork. I'm a big fan of From Software games. I've played Dark Souls all the way to Elden Ring, of course, because who hasn't? I did not play Bloodborne though, or Demon Souls for that matter. So sue me. Apparently those are really good. Apparently Bloodborne is especially really good. But yeah, I really like From Software games, so I was like, Armored Core 6, huh? Well, that's From Software. I will get it just because I love their games. And off the cuff, my first like hour one impression of the game was, oh no, I've made a terrible mistake. Because it's a little, when you first jump into Armored Core 6, it can be a lot to take in all at once. There's I wouldn't say it's a hard game. It's just that there's a pretty stark learning curve. Comparing it to other FromSoft games, that is. Going into it thinking, oh, it's kind of like there are other games, it's like a Sekiro, it's like a Demon Souls. I didn't play Demon Souls, so I don't know why I said Demon Souls as an example. It's like an Elden Ring, you get in there, you do your dodges, you scan their attacks and all that, and you get in and you get out. I was a little overwhelmed by the amount of things there are in Armored Core 6. But once you get over that learning curve, it is just honestly the easiest game that they've put out in a long time. Like, a lot of people like to talk about how hard From Software games are, but Armored Core 6, definitely their easiest one yet. So where do I go from here? First impressions, yeah, it was overwhelming at first. There's a stark learning curve that you have to get over. But beyond that, once I got over that learning curve, my eyes were opened up to just a brand new world. The UI is a little bit odd at first, which is part of that learning curve, getting used to the UI. It's very mechanical in a way. But yeah, once you get past that tutorial level, yeah, it was a tutorial level as well. The tutorial level is probably the hardest part of the game, except for no spoilers. Actually, no spoilers. I'm not gonna do any spoilers. But so far, I am on chapter 5 of 5. I had not complete the game in its entirety because, I mean, come on, I have a full-time job. I can't do this. I can't play games 24/7. I didn't get the game early or anything like that. But I am close to the end, which I was surprised by because, of course, games usually are longer than this. But Armored Core 6 does a really refreshing thing. It's so quick and straight to the point, where you can just hop in, knock out a mission in like 10 minutes. In 2023, it's a rarity where a game values your time as much as you do, where you can get so much done in an hour's worth of game time, assuming you don't get stuck on a boss, of course. Where other games I've played this year, like Final Fantasy 16, the freshest example for me at least, that game did not feel like it respected my time. It took a long time to get through segments of that game, and a lot of the side quests and side activities were just pointless in it, quite frankly. Armored Core, however, gives you so much substance in such a little time. You get all of these, you can go into the missions, which are very quick, and they're very satisfying. What Armored Core continues in From Software's lineage is that same sense of victory and satisfaction from defeating a boss enemy, because it's really the boss enemies that are the real shining jewel of this game, in my opinion. The normal enemy types, they're basic, they're whatever. Get out of my life. I demolish them so easily. Your Armored Core can be built out in a variety of ways, and the way that mine was built out just absolutely wrecks these normal enemies. And I'm sure it absolutely wreck any Armored Core, for that matter, would probably wreck these enemies because they're just basic pieces of machines. But it's these boss type enemies with bigger health pools, and they are oftentimes also other armored cores, in the way that you could theoretically buy these parts and create that same enemy. In some cases, of course, they aren't just armored cores, and they are bigger set piece moments, which are very cool, and I will not spoil any of those for you here. But they are very cool and sometimes challenging. Not for me, though. I kind of found this game as a breeze, shockingly enough, which is weird, seeing the internet not feel that way. I don't even mean that as like a braggy thing. It's just, it was a breeze for me. But so far, at least, I still have one chapter left. We'll see how it goes. There was one boss fight that really, really knocked the wind out of me for a good hour. But still, that was the longest it took. You'll know it when you get to it, okay? I won't tell you where, but just be on your toes. But to circle back to your Armored Core can be so many things. There's so many different leg types that completely change the way your Armored Core moves, whether it be a tank, a hovercraft, or a frog, even in a weird way. It's essentially a frog. It's you can build it out in any way you want. And it was there where I was a little concerned, honestly, by how much customization there was. Because in those early hours, I did not know. I was overwhelmed once again by just the amount of customization, because I did not know what I wanted my Armored Core to look like. I eventually settled on basing it off of Diva from Overwatch, of course. Overwatch, I'm sure you do. It's one of the biggest games ever. People aren't very pleased with it at the moment, but that's besides the point. But there's a lot of options to customize your mech, whether it be paint jobs, whether it be your leg types, your arm types, your head types, your body types, or expansions that essentially add a new ability to your Armored Core. It's a lot, and it was very daunting at first to find out which build worked for me, whether it was a sword and a Gatling gun, a sword and a shotgun, a sword and a shield, which you can also do. I wouldn't recommend it personally. I don't actually, can you? I don't know if you can actually. I have it pulled up right in front of me. Like I paused the game to record this because I think maybe you can only have a sword on a certain arm. Yeah, you can't do sword and shield. I don't think actually. Now that I'm looking at it, you can't have a shield on this arm because what is it? I'm looking at. You don't even know. Like this is probably not great content. Me looking at a thing. You can have your sword on your left arm, but I don't think you can have a shield on your right arm. You can also no shields. Where are shields? Shields are shield. Okay, you could have theoretically you could have a sword and shield. I'm looking at it now. A shield is on your shoulder, and a sword is on your arm, which is another aspect of the customization that you have shoulder weapons and you have arm weapons, which you can mix match in any sort of way that all have their own strengths and weaknesses, whether you want a plasma gun or a laser rifle, things like that, because different enemy types have different weaknesses that you have to learn. And that's a big part of Armored Core 6, the experimentation with these different weaponry, with the different weaponry and Armored Core parts that you have at your disposal. Because sometimes if you find yourself against a wall with a boss fight, like I did that one time, only one time, okay? Everything else a breeze. You are very much encouraged to just, after you die, you can go straight to your assembly and swap out your parts and then reload the checkpoint and see if that new build that you've just started would help more against this certain boss fight, which is great. So if you find yourself up against a wall, up against a boss fight that you just are getting really, really frustrated with, take a step back. Maybe you need to rework your build. Maybe you're the problem, It's not you. Well, it is you. It's not them, it's you. You need to get good. For a lack of a better term, get good. But yeah, because that was definitely the issue with me, where I thought, oh, my build's been just pummeling all these enemies for so long, and then suddenly I come up against this boss fight that is just demolishing me in record time, quite honestly. And then I was getting a little annoyed with that. But then I just went into my assembly line, I swapped out my parts, and there you go. Before I knew it, it was that very next try where I got that boss fight down, and it was the most satisfying feeling I've had in the entire game, because that's what From Software is so good at, these boss fights. You know, come on, you've played Elden Ring, I'm sure. You know that feeling you get, that rush? It's here, and it's so good. Switching gears, though, I do have to admit I have not touched the online aspect of the game, which is there. It is a 1v1 or 3v3 Armored Core fight. Honestly, I haven't done it because I feel like I would get demolished, and it would really just be, it would really, really just knock the wind out of me. It would make me feel bad, if I'm being honest. But beyond just the normal mission structure of the campaign, you also have arenas, which are little side activity for you to essentially hone your skills by taking NPCs throughout the game and just letting you fight their saved data, essentially. I didn't even talk about the story, by the way. So let's talk about the story for a second. Arenas are cool. Yeah, I kind of glossed over that. It's cool. Let me finish talking about arenas first. This is off the cuff, so I'm a little scatterbrained. That's fine. If you're here, I'm sure you're aware of what my ramblings are like, and you're in for that. But yeah, arenas, it's essentially just multi-tiered lists of enemies that get progressively harder, and you have to finely tune your skills to be the best of all of the other Armored Cores. Classic stuff. But let's move on to the story, which is a big talking point. So, as any From Software game, the story here is relatively minimal compared to other games, of course. But comparing it directly to other From Software games, at least the recent Soulsborne From Software games, I would argue that this is the most story that we've seen, at least told directly to us. The ones that, because in like a Dark Souls or Elden Ring, I keep saying Dark Souls or Elden Ring. I know there's more. I mean, there's 3 Dark Souls, and Elden Ring, and Bloodborne, and Sekiro. Okay, no, actually, no. Now that I think about it, Sekiro is the one with the most story. Okay, so if we tiered it out, I would say Sekiro has the most story. Then underneath that is Armored Core 6, then Elden Ring, then Dark Souls 3, and so on and so forth. And yeah, but the story of Armored Core, I got way off track there. But hopefully that was a good comparison and you understood it completely. With Armored Core 6, the story is delivered to you in essentially codec calls from Metal Gear, where your quote unquote handler is what they call the guy who sends you on missions. He will tell you what's going on with all these corporations and what's going on with the Rubicon and the Rubiconians. And I don't want to spoil it too much. I know that it's a pretty minimal story, but there's still stuff to grasp onto there that I wouldn't want to like spoil too much. So there's a lot to do with corporations and Rubiconians and Coral, which you'll learn all about. And essentially, it's not much, but it is delivered through those codec calls and a few cutscenes even, which is more than you could say for most From Software games, except for Sekiro. I honestly am shocked by it. I'm not gonna, of course, once again, not gonna go into any details, but it gets more interesting the more you play. The more you're familiar, once you are more familiarized with the world, the more you pay attention to these things and certain things that happen. You know what I mean? It's like when you first start the game, you have no idea what's going on, because likely this is going to be your first Armored Core game, as it was for me, because no one really played the other ones until this one, because of course From Software blew up a lot in the past decade or two. It's actually just been the past decade now. I'm looking at the time, looking at the year. But essentially, where was I going with that? Yeah, it's a brand new, fresh world where you just don't really understand much of what's happening. So the more you are in this world, the more certain phrases, corporation names, character names, the more you hear them, the more they're ingrained in your brain, and the more you recognize them when something happens within these codec calls or mission briefings where you're like, oh, hey, I remember that. I actually know what's happening. And that happens more throughout the game. Like, I'm on chapter 5, as I mentioned, and things like before I was like, the story's taking a backseat on this game. It's whatever. But honestly, now I am very much invested in the story aspect of this game, which I did not see coming. So there is a good story here for those who are willing to dig in for it. It's not necessarily digging in the sense like you have to read boss souls, boss weapons, and all that from Elden Ring sort of thing. It's more so just pay attention to when your handler is talking to you between missions, and pay attention to the mission briefings, and you'll be rewarded in that sense. And in that sense of the reading boss weapons for the lore and stuff, boss souls and stuff, the good comparison to that is to circle back to the arena mode, where it takes characters. I mentioned that earlier. It's not really a spoiler. I don't think so. I don't, because there's no context there. It's just characters throughout the game on a tiered list that you can fight because they have their memories saved onto this. I don't know. It's like fighting ghosts, not fighting ghosts. It's like racing a ghost in Mario Kart. That's essentially what it is. They have their ghost data that you can fight in the arena. So that's what it is. It's nothing weird like a spoiler thing. Essentially, those lists of characters, they all have their little lore entry there if you want to dig deeper on the characters' backstories and stuff. But beyond that, the story's been very good. I'm very surprised by it. And what else is there to cover in terms of Armored Core 6 talk? I feel like I've covered it all, honestly. I'm looking at the game right now. Of course, can't really talk too much about multiplayer. I haven't touched it. But, circling back on the customization. You can customize all the colors and all that. There are also ways to get online download like user created content. I haven't looked into it, but I know it's possible. So You know, if you're too lazy to make logos yourself, I'm sure someone out there has already made a Decepticon logo or an Autobot logo that you can just download off of the internet and use for your own will, which I considered at first before I settled on using a Diva. And I think that might be it. I think that is my review so far of Armored Core 6. Of course, it is so far. I haven't rolled credits, so I can't put a stamp on it because my opinion could change with this final chapter, but maybe it won't. I definitely do regret putting a number. A good example of it being not a great idea to put a number on a review that's not complete yet is my Final Fantasy 16 in review. If you saw that one, review in progress. Whew, I gave it an 8.5. I finished the game since then. I'm sitting at like a 7, honestly, for that game. But for Armored Core 6, which is why you're here, not for me to rant about what I didn't like about Final Fantasy 16, which maybe I'll do a different day if we have a slow news day or something. Who knows? Maybe I'll just do it because I want to. This is my channel after all. But Armored Core 6, as of right now, I'd probably give it like an 8. 8.5. I know that sounds funny to say after what I just said about Final Fantasy, but the shortcomings. I guess I should talk about the shortcomings of the game. That makes it a nice, well-rounded review. Because, yeah, if there were no shortcomings, it would be a perfect 10, which I just don't think it is. There have been times where I just run out of ammo, which could be a skill issue, of course, naturally. But I do just feel like it's just me versus a boss fight. Me 1v1 boss fight. And sometimes I still run out of ammo. And it's just like, that's crazy, right? I feel like I should not be able to run out of ammo. And you can't pick up ammo or upgrade your ammo capacity in any way. It's just, it is what you have. And if you run out, you're going to have to just use your fists, which is not ideal, which is why I ran with a sword for most of the game. I have since then changed it up because a sword, of course, doesn't use ammo. So it would be very convenient to have that to deal more damage than my fist, of course. And then another gripe I had was there are a lot of boundaries, like invisible wall type of things, that I've come into where I'm like, oh, I have like a perfect example. The prime example, really, is that I had this flying boss type enemy. He was flying around, and I was chasing him down because he was flying, so I was trying to get close, get a nice sword slash in him, and then he would just fly out of the boundary, and then my sword slash, of course, wouldn't hit because I got stopped by the invisible wall, whereas the boss just didn't, and he kept going. I was like, well, hey, that doesn't seem very fair now, does it? And there was one more thing. I had maybe one bug, which I do need to check the tape on because I did record it, and it is actually the footage that you're seeing now. The B-roll I recorded. Yeah, it was crazy that I was able to get this on tape while I was, this potential bug on tape while I was doing B-roll footage. But there was one point where it was clear all of the enemies in this area, and then I thought I did, and then the game just never progressed, which wasn't bad because I was replaying a mission, so it wasn't bad at all. But it was just, kind of annoying. Which does actually bring up another point that I should have mentioned earlier. Replaying missions is a very big part of the game as well, which I did a lot of in the B-roll. It's all from Chapter 1. I guess I should have said that earlier. No spoilers really there. Except for the big boss fight at the end, but, whatever. Where's I going with that? Oh, yeah. You replay your missions to get more money, to purchase more parts that you can use, of course, to change up your build at any given moment. And yeah, it's a big part. They definitely want you to do that so that you can have all of these parts and experiment with them. Because once you replay a mission, you also get a rating on them, A, S, B rank, all of that jazz. That sort of thing. So it's definitely encouraged for you to go back and replay your missions to get both money and to just get better and feel better about your performance at the game. But yeah, now that sounds about it. That sounds about everything. Of course, 8.5 is what I think I'll end up sticking to. I don't think, unless the story ends and I'm like, whoa, it could go up. But I don't think even if the story tanked itself, that would bring it down, because the gameplay itself is very good, very engaging, and very satisfying, which is one of the most important things, I think, in a game. I have to feel that satisfaction that I did something, and you get that all the time in Armored Core 6. So, yeah, we're going to wrap it up here. I think I've said all I can say about Armored Core 6, and I made it to close to the 30-minute mark, shockingly. I did not know if I would, since I am just rambling about this video game for 30 minutes straight. I almost did it. We're at 26 minutes now, unless I cut some stuff out. But, yeah. That's all I had to say on Armored Core 6. But what about you? Head to the comments below. Let me know what you thought of Armored Core 6. What's your current score for it? Have you finished it? One thing I will say, circle back again. I've said circle back so many times. To circle back to the way that it respects your time, it definitely respects my time, because Starfield, as of this recording, Starfield, oh my God. Holy Jesus. As of this recording, Starfield releases tonight in less than 12 hours. That's crazy. Whoa. Oh my God. For early access, of course. So by the time you see this, it's already out, and go play Starfield. But, yeah, I'm gonna, yeah. Whew. Wow. Wow. Anyways, by the time this comes out, that will be old news, because Starfield will have already been out, but that reaction was very real. But, so yeah, wrapping it up, in closing, in summary, Armored Core 6, great game, respects your time. I definitely feel like I can finish it before Starfield's full release, because, of course, I am still working these next couple of days. I took the week off for Starfield, basing it off of its actual release date, because there was no such thing as early access when I took those days off, so I am a little screwed on that front. So I don't think I'm going to dive fully into Starfield until I am off. But, so I'll probably just finish Armored Core and then be ready to move fully and commit my entire being and life into Starfield next week. Which, yeah. So this episode of TalkAbout is over. The next one will be probably next Sunday. Not this coming Sunday, next Sunday, because that's going to be my Starfield TalkAbout, where I'm just talking about Starfield, whether I loved it or hated it. Hopefully I love it. And also, definitely going to be a review in progress, because there's no way I'm going to finish Starfield, even with a full week. Because, come on, if that game delivers on its scope, I'm going to be wasting so much time in that game, and I'm going to love every second of it. But yeah, Armored Core 6, what did you think of it? What's your current score for it? Do you think you're going to beat it before you play Starfield? Let me know all of that in the comments below. And, of course, I'll be back later with more TalkAbout. And, yeah. As always, remember, stay safe and play some video games.